Hello, my name is Karen Gutfreund. I'm an independent activist and feminist curator, and very pleased to announce Agency Feminist Art and Power that is being hosted right now at the Museum of Sonoma County. And with me today, we are speaking with Kristine Mays, one of the 28 artists, and just want to celebrate her and her work.
I'm really excited to be here, so thank you for having me. And this show is just incredible. So I feel good being included in such a vast array of really talented artists.
When did you first start identifying as a feminist? Or maybe I should ask too, do you identify as a feminist?
I remember seeing my mom having a conversation. It was like a gathering of friends, and she was in some political debate. and one of the men in the room really didn't want her to interject her opinion into the conversation, even though, it was a room full of men and women. And so at one point he said, "Oh, you're doing that feminist talk." And so I was probably like 5 years old. I didn't have a clue as to what that meant. But I knew in that moment that if that was what a feminist was, that was what I wanted to be. So, in my view, I saw it as like someone having strength and self-assurance and, this courage to really speak the truth. And so, from that point on, I sort of loosely held that idea of feminism. And in the last few years, I think I would say I'm more of a womanist, which is the term coined by Alice Walker, because of the fact that feminism doesn't always include women of various backgrounds and nationalities. And so it doesn't really take into consideration, the inequalities that come from racism and white supremacy in this country.
That's what I love about having created Agency, with you artists and with the museum, because it really is very intergenerational, intersectional. And that's what I really strove to do, was to elevate all these, the voices, because agency is what it's all about. It's about claiming one's power, living your authentic experience, and then and portraying that through your work, which your piece, Say Her Name, does so well. Yeah, so tell us, how do you get the inspiration for the forms, and how you build the figures, like both the movement and building the figures?
So I'm always looking at photos, and I also people watch a lot. And so when I'm watching people, I'm really looking at how their clothes fall on them, and like how they drape on their bodies, and
right.
All of the little wrinkles that come about just from people wearing their clothes. And so I'm looking at that as well when I'm looking at photographs. And so really it's about like the silhouettes and the shapes that are being formed. And after I study the photo for a while I'm studying the photo, I'm really transforming it into what essentially becomes a puzzle. So in my mind, I'll have a blueprint of it, and it's broken into pieces and shapes. And then I'll begin really small, just, small pieces that look sort of amoeba-like. and then I start to put them together. As I gather enough, I'll start to build, one piece upon the next until I have what I desire.
When did you decide to start working with wire?
It really came about as sort of an accident. I at the time I was working with beads, creating, dangly beaded earrings. And I was in a warehouse that was full of glass beads and happened to come upon this roll of wire, which I bought thinking that I would interweave, like the wire mixed in with beads. And but I really, once I started playing with it, I really liked the feel of it. And I'd also been, I draw a lot and have worked in other media. And so I just had this idea of experimenting with the thought of being able to freeze frame a moment in time. And so once I started working with the wire, it just really felt good. So the idea of making something into a 3D object was really appealing. And then it has a feel to it that's meditative, sort of like knitting. There's an element of feeling the challenge. If I see an image, I'll feel the challenge of like, can I create this? And then there's a feeling of play because I'm just experimenting and seeing if I can do it. And there's just a lot of experimentation with this idea of fooling people into thinking, oh, it's very fluid and everyone assumes that the piece is very soft and fluid and fragile, and yet it's not at all.
So how many other pieces do you have like text incorporated in them like you do with Say Her Name?
This has been sort of a new thing to put text within the pieces. And so I've done, I think there may be 5 at the most that I currently have. At one point I did a series of they were like very, well, for me, they were small. They were about like 24 inches tall. These sort of torsos of bodies, of women's bodies. And I put some sort of phrase on every one of them. Like one said, "Me too." There was one that said, "Protect her." And they were various pieces. I think it was like 5 or 6 in this series of pieces. And then I've done 2 pieces that are part of Rich Soil that have full quotes within them. One says, the greatest agony is an untold story. And I have another one that has a Zora Neale Hurston quote on it.
Oh, great. What is that quote?
That quote actually plays into this whole idea of agency.
Oh, good.
And so I made sure I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. But it says, if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it.
So you stated that Say Her Name #2 was created as a remembrance for Black women and girls who've been killed at the hands of police or experienced police violence. And, next month on March 13th, it'll have been 2 years since Breonna Taylor was killed in her home by the Louisville police. How do you relate your work to the Say Her Name movement, and how has it changed in the past 2 years?
I found myself looking online just to see how many women have been killed by the police or I won't even say killed in general, because Black women are killed. I saw an article that said Black women, like up to 4 Black women a day are killed in this country. And it all goes unreported. So that really, I think I really struggle with things that happen and individuals that become invisible. So just reading that was disturbing. And then hearing that, over 250, which I still don't believe, I think the numbers are higher than this, but over 250 Black women have been killed by the police since 2015. So I don't really feel like it's like anything has changed. One thing I found that was interesting is I read an article that said that when Breonna Taylor died, there were 8 articles written about it within 60 days. Whereas with George Floyd, when he was killed, over 22,000 articles were written. So I mean, that right there just shows, from 8 articles with Breonna Taylor 22,000 articles with George Floyd. So it really just shows the inequality and patriarchy and all of those issues, you know, and just the lack of value for women, and specifically for Black women. I think that shines a light on it. And so that really, you know, to answer your question, that's really why I felt like this piece was important to the show, and why I think it's important in general. Just the fact that if no one says anything, then you know, this is another sector of people that are just deemed invisible. The hardest part about working with text within the pieces is figuring out where they'll lay, and also where I'll rest them so that your eye will travel the piece. And then also, depending on how the text is incorporated, sometimes I lose out on the opportunity to create any sort of shape with the dress, as far as like giving it some sway or any kind of ripple or creases or anything. So I think for this piece, I chose to put it, you know, right at her collar line, just because it really confronts you with it. That one of the beautiful parts about, you know, with the Say Her Name movement, they say, you know, say her name, and then they'll state the name and the crowd will state it back. And it's harder to overlook the fact that these are like daughters and mothers and aunts and sisters and friends, you know. It really gives a sense of the fact that these are real people. That's really why I wanted the writing to be like right where you would not miss it at all. There's no way to get around it. I think it's definitely necessary. It's not something that obviously I don't enjoy it, but it's, you know, it presses on me so hard that, you know, I'm thankful that I have artwork to work it out, you know, like to actually work through my feelings around all of this. And so, you know, hopefully other people will be affected by it and you know, have some challenge to take action in some way.
What does like the term agency mean to you?
You know, agency is often about having power, influence, or this wherewithal to create change. And with the situation with Say Her Name, there really is a lack of that, in the sense that you know, people can't, it's sort of beyond, these killings are beyond our control, in the sense of like, we can't control the authority or the actions that are being taken by the government or people who hold that sort of wield that power. So for me, agency was more about what sort of action would be taken. And I felt like my action would be just to continually sound the alarm and not forget that these people have had their lives taken. And so that's really where agency comes into play for me.
That's why I love art as activism and working with artists like you, because you're taking a very strong stance of like, here's the line in the sand and not going to cross it. This is not okay. And I think the more that we raise our voices like this, it's like it will create positive change. Like as a curator, you know, looking at this piece, because it's right over your heart. And that really gets to the essence of activist art, because it's like the visual says so much more than words, and it resonates first in your heart and your emotions, and then next bubbles up like the thinking, you know, and the conceptual meaning of the work. And so to me, it's like it really strikes your heart first. And when you feel that emotion, and when you sense that, then you really start thinking about it, and you can create, have, dialogue and create bridges to better understanding. So first it's your heart, then it's your mind, and then hope, and then.
Wow, thank you for pointing that out. I so much of what I do is intuitive, so it's not like I have a chance to really think about it until after it's made. And then and it's just always joyful to me to see people's visceral reaction to the work. That really communicates almost more than words.
Well, again, Kristine, I have to say thank you so much for joining with me today and for being in the exhibition. And so again, to our audience, this is Agency, Feminist Art and Power, that is at the Museum of Sonoma County, which is about 50 miles north of San Francisco. And the show is open until June 5th. So we're really hoping that a lot of people will be able to come and join us to see it.